أهلا بكل الذين ينضموا للاستماع إلى راديو بلدي أول راديو عربي أمريكي ويعنى بقضايا العرب في المهجر. برامجنا في راديو بلدي كل يوم جمعة من 8 وحتى 9 صباحا في بث حي ومباشر عبر WNZK Radio 690 AM. صباح الخير بلدي، صباح الخير لكل مستمعينا.
Welcome to Radio Baladi, the first Arab, Middle Eastern, and American simulcast radio show. Radio Baladi is broadcast every Friday morning on WNZK 690 AM from 8 until 9 Eastern Time on Good Morning Michigan. Our call-in number 248-557-3300. And now, stay tuned for the best radio talk show on Arab and American issues.
And good morning, everyone. It's Friday, May 10, 2024. A little technical thing there going on, but I think we're okay. I'm sure you can hear me. We're broadcasting live on Facebook. Everything's going well there. And, of course, on radio, WNZK AM 690. I'm Ray Hanania. It is May 10, 2024. And I'm here on the second Friday of every month during my off season from Arab News. And then we're delaying the start of the Arab News radio show until August because we want to wrap it around the elections in November. So we do 6 months every year from the Gulf and in Chicago and Detroit on WNZK AM 690 and Washington, D.C. And we may pick up a couple other stations thanks to the help of Layla El-Husseini, the, I don't know what you call a radio owner. Radio show. She's the empress of WNZK AM 690 Radio Baladi. Anyway, we're broadcasting live, and I urge you to check out my columns at ArabNews.com and my hub at Hanania.com. You can read all my writings. I write 5 columns a week. I write for the Arab News news every week and columns once a week. And I write for a chain of newspapers in Chicago, the regional Des Plaines Valley News. So I do a lot of writing. I love doing all that. But one of my biggest topics is getting the stories out accurately about the Middle East, and we don't really hear it. But today we're going to talk with the attorney who's representing 22 students at Arizona State University. Now, he's from Detroit, David Chami, and we're going to talk to him in a second. We're going to take a quick break, but he's going to tell us about what those students were going through, and maybe we can talk in a very broad way also about the issues involved with students protesting. It said I was a Vietnam veteran. I remember before the war, I was a student. There were protests at our colleges. I remember what it was like. Nobody wanted us to protest, but I didn't see how vicious they were back. They weren't as the viciousness today is 100 times worse than what it was 56 years ago when students were protesting. And those protests in 1968 against the Vietnam War got worse as the Chicago Convention came up in August. And we're going to see a replay of that this August in Chicago. This convention is going to be a big deal. And the protesters, believe me, they're going to be there. They're not going away. So listen, we're going to take one first break here. And then when we come back, I want to introduce you to our guest, David Chami. If you're watching us on Facebook, he's with us already. If you're just on radio, which we appreciate, just hang tight. We'll get through some of these ads, and we'll start talking about these issues. I'm Ray Hanania. We're going to be back right after these messages.
ArabNews.com, bringing you breaking news from across the Middle East and the latest on Arabs in America. Get inside the latest headlines with expert analysis and insights at ArabNews.com. Join over 5 million Facebook fans and over 10 million monthly readers. ArabNews.com. News that matters to you.
In a perfect world, everyone would be a perfect driver.
Hands at 9 and 3, everyone.
9 and 3.
Everyone would follow all the rules.
Please, go ahead and merge. I'll make room.
Thank you, fellow driver.
And nothing unexpected would ever happen. Even the squirrels would know the right time to safely cross the road. In this perfect world, you wouldn't have to wear a seatbelt. But in case you hadn't noticed, we don't live in a perfect world. About 1,000 people in Michigan die each year in vehicle crashes, and thousands more are injured. Wearing your seatbelt reduces your risk of death in a crash by 45% in a car and by 60% in a pickup truck. So until we find a perfect world to drive in, make our imperfect world safer by buckling up. A message from the Michigan Office of Highway Safety Planning.
Life for Relief and Development has now been rated as one of the best charities for humanitarian aid. Life's humanitarian projects span the globe, and Life is celebrating its 30th anniversary of providing essential life-saving aid to people and communities in 36 countries, regardless of race, color, religion, or cultural background. Where there is life, there is hope. And when disaster occurs here or around the world, including being one of the first responders to the Turkey-Syria earthquake crisis, Life for Relief and Development rushes in to provide food, medical aid, and shelter to those in need. We are looking to help the earthquake victims, and we take 0% overhead on emergency donations. So please help improve these efforts. Learn more about our involvement to help the helpless and bring hope where it's needed most, and make your tax-deductible donation to Life for Relief and Development now at lifeusa.org or call 248-424-7493. That's 248-424-7493.
And welcome back to Radio Baladi. I'm Ray Hanania here at WNZK AM 690 Radio. I'm here with my guest, Attorney David Chami. David, welcome to the program. And I know you're way on the West Coast now, so wow, I'm going, okay. I know how rough it is to get up that early in the morning, but this is so important what you're doing. And I'll tell you why. But first, tell us a little bit about yourself. Give us some background to the audience. I know that you graduated from Arizona State University with a law degree in 2009, but give us the 411 on you and what you do.
Well, good morning. I'm born and raised in Detroit. Third generation Arab American, although my father was an immigrant. My grandfather on my mother's side was born in Hamtramck, Michigan. So I had a family, had a couple children, and then one day decided, I needed to get a law degree. I needed to be able to make a difference,
Wow.
not only for my family, but for our community. Probably sometime after, maybe a few years after the Iraq invasion, I decided if I was gonna make a difference in the world, it wasn't gonna be in sales. And then I found out becoming a lawyer actually has a lot to do with sales. So I went to law school at Arizona State University. I graduated, and I decided to plant my roots there and start my legal practice. And ever since I started, basically, civil rights has been a part of my practice from the beginning. Although I think today it's a little different than it ever has been for me. It's the work I'm doing now isn't really about money. It's very personal. I have family that still lives in South Lebanon, enduring, part of this 7-month now old conflict. So I don't know if I answered your question, but
well, yeah. Do you have a website if people want to follow up on you and to get legal rep? Because first of all, people in Detroit need to know that you're one of the top attorneys on this topic. I got to be honest. The whole reason I found you was because I saw something on Twitter where Alan Dershowitz, who is a pro-Israel attorney and who's from that community, was vowing and saying, I will represent any Jewish student who stands up to these racist, blah, 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 really viciously attacking Palestinians. And I'm thinking, okay, where are the Arab attorneys? Why aren't Arab attorneys? I just don't see them. There was no promotion.
yeah.
But then I saw that you filed a lawsuit on behalf of 22 of 27 students at Arizona State University who were disciplined by the university, and it's going to disrupt their education and their graduation for some of them. And it just seems unfair because I know you and I are both against anti-Semitism, but we're also against Islamophobia. We're also against anti-Arab racism. It's almost like people only care about one side. What brought you to their attention? What got you to say, hey, I got to do something to help these students at Arizona State University?
Sure. So let me start by pointing out that of the 27 students who were arrested who were suspended. 5 of them are Arab American or Muslim.
Oh, okay.
The remaining students are your everyday kids. I mean, they're not any different than, and I don't think that's any different than
Right.
any other university throughout the country. These are not dominated by Arab Americans or Muslim Americans. We are participating, but there are large swaths of Jewish Americans. There are large swaths of your typical, what I would say, your typical white Caucasian kids.
So some of them are even Jewish students that are standing up for justice and want to see a better Israel, not Netanyahu's government.
Yeah, every single one of these protests include support from Jewish Americans and Jewish American students at these universities. So I think it would be, I think Alan Dershowitz knows that, but it's easy to paint the protesters as Hamas supporters rather than supporters of humanity, which is what they are. I think most Israelis now are in the streets. Israeli students are protesting. Students across universities in Montreal and France and Germany are protesting. This isn't about anti-Semitism, and anyone who tries to conflate these protests with anti-Semitism, first of all, most people know that these protests are not anti-Semitic.
Right.
But you put
well,
these
when you're
kids
only
in
when you have no defense, for what Israel's government is doing, the only thing you can do is try to demonize the critics who are bringing up the facts and call them anti-Semitic.
Yeah,
because anybody that says that you're anti-Semitic means that they don't know what the real facts are and they can't address it because it makes them look bad. This has been a war of words as much as a war of life and death, since over the past 8 months, and even before that, before October 7th. And certainly, and I know that you'll agree with me when I say this, neither of us support what happened on October 7th. We don't support violence. We don't support anti-Semitism. It's just a shame that we have to keep saying that as Arab Americans and as Palestinians, but they don't have to say they don't support Islamophobia. They don't say that they don't support anti-Arab racism against Muslims and Christians, because the majority of Arabs in this country are actually Christian Arabs, and they take a beating because of that. So 5 of the 27 are Arab, and then the other 17 are American of other ethnic backgrounds and stuff. How did you get involved in it? Did you see it and say, hey, I got to do something? Did somebody reach out to you?
So I sit on the board of CARE Arizona. That's the Council on American Islamic Relations.
Very active organization, I got to tell you. Probably one of the most active in the country. You do not see anything happen in this country without seeing their name.
Yeah, so I sit on the board. I happen to be on vacation. I was with my wife. We were in Cabo, taking a much needed and I didn't know it at the time, but much deserved break. And I started getting messages, social media posts, but I also was getting messages from the executive director for our chapter, letting me know that, that people were being arrested. The arrests began actually at 9 a.m., which completely cuts against the university's sort of ultimate argument that these protesters were in violation of their curfew, 11 p.m. to 5 a.m., no protesting in that area. But they had arrested 3 of the protesters right around 9 a.m. And they did it without warning. They did it without providing them any explanation for the arrests. The police chief of Arizona State University was actually caught on camera with a pocket knife slashing the tents that were being put up.
Just like that kind of, there's a deep-seated hatred with some people who oppose these protests. That, we'll talk about this later about the Chicago police, but that's amazing. Well, we got to take I want to take our next break here. David. But let me ask you a question. You're with CARE. I didn't know, again, it doesn't really matter if you're Muslim or Christian, but CARE is very open. And I thought you were Christian. Now you may be Muslim. Am I correct or?
I am Muslim.
You are okay. Well,
Yeah.
and again, it doesn't matter to me, but whenever I can showcase Christian activism, I try to do that too, because some people think that Christian Arabs don't exist and
Oh.
they ignore us, and it's not any offense to Muslim Arabs who do a tremendous amount of work. CARE is probably, like I said, one of the strongest, most active organizations, in the country. And I can't even keep up with all the stuff that they do, but I wish other organizations were as active as CARE.
I can tell you my Christian Arab friends, which I have many of, are actively supporting me in my endeavors. So,
and we're together, Christians and Muslims and even Jewish Americans. I mean, when it comes to doing the right thing, they're all together. So that's always a good thing. We're on with David Chami. He's an attorney who's representing 22 students at Arizona State University. We're talking about the university's crackdown on them, but it's kind of a microcosm of the bigger movement that's taking place across the country at probably 100 or more universities, where students are standing up to what is clearly genocide in Gaza by a government. Not a people or religion, but a government. And they're being attacked, they're being demonized, they're being vilified. But we're talking with David about who these protesters at Arizona State University are and what they went through. And really, honestly, that CARE and he, as an attorney, stepped up to the plate to represent them and defend them when the university cracked down on them. I think it was early in April 26th, I think, was it? I think that was the day when was that it? Yeah. So anyway, we're going to take a quick break. I'm Ray Hanania here with my guest, David Chami, an attorney originally from Detroit. He's now at helping students at Arizona State University. Hang on with us, and we'll be right back right after these messages.
Ziyad brand, quality products from our family to yours. Ziyad Brothers Importing offers the finest quality products, including brands like Sultan, Kraft, Nestle, Hook, Rico Picon, Donna, and many more. Ask your retailer to carry these fine products because you deserve the very best. For more information, visit our website at www.ziyad.com. That's www.ziyad.com. Ziyad, quality products from our family to yours.
Hey, Michigan drivers, are you sending or answering group chats behind the wheel, checking emails at the light, calling family or friends on the commute? Michigan's hands-free law makes it illegal to manually use electronic devices while behind the wheel of a vehicle. Breaking the law could mean fines or even community service. Go hands-free, just drive. It's the law. Learn more at michigan.gov/distracted driving. A message from the Michigan Office of Highway Safety Planning.
Get ready for an amazing experience at Ishtar Restaurant on 15 Mile Road in Sterling Heights. Enjoy excellent hospitality from owners Ali Al-Baghdadi and Fatty Bottom, serving the best in Mediterranean food. Try Chef Ali Al-Baghdadi's famous shawarma, the best Iraqi grills and food, and the best Arabic and international dishes. Dine in our authentic atmosphere or take out. Call 586-698-2585 or check us out on Facebook. Ishtar Restaurant practices all CDC guidelines and is open every day, 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. Have an amazing experience today at Ishtar Restaurant, 3625 15 Mile Road, Sterling Heights.
And welcome back to Radio Baladi. I'm Ray Hanania with my guest, attorney David Chami. David is originally from the greater Detroit region, and I think you said Hamtramck, I think, originally. And
grandfather.
Your grandfather.
Yeah, I actually lived in Dearborn Heights.
Dearborn Heights, that's it. That's the capital of the Arab community. And the people who hate us, they say terrible things simply because we're concentrated. In Chicago, we had a district that had the largest concentration of Arab and Palestinian voters, a congressional district. And in the last, and we elected somebody who was being representative of us, an American woman, Marie Newman. As soon as they saw that, they went in and they divided that district into 5 different parts and split us up so that we couldn't have our voice, all because they said there is no word Arab on the census. Now we have Mina, but I've yet to run into somebody who says, "Hey, I'm Mina." I'm not Mina, I'm Arab. That's the 4-letter word I am, and I'm proud to be Arab, and I'm not ever going to be anything different. David Chami, you represented, like we were talking about earlier, 22 of the students. Tell us a little bit about what were the legal issues? I mean, were they violent? Did they destroy stuff? What did they do to justify this crackdown that's going to jeopardize their educations now because of the university action?
Right. So Ray, let me tell you that, we've seen protests all across the country. We've seen, in Columbia, at Columbia University, they took over a building eventually. Of course, that protest escalated, but the protest at ASU was scheduled for a weekend. It was scheduled to be outside on the main lawn and at the old main lawn in Tempe. Away from the classroom buildings, even though typically you're not having classrooms on the weekends. It was finals week, so the amount of students on campus, the last week of finals week, so there weren't classes. The finals were almost over, and it was as peaceful as you could imagine a protest would be. We're talking about chanting, singing, doing debke, teaching the non-Arabs how to do debke. I mean, it was, there was protesting, but it was non-disruptive, non-violent. There was 0 charges against any of these people who were arrested for violence, for resisting arrest, none of that. The sole charge against these, the people who were arrested was for trespassing. So, you'll hear about violence at some of these protests, but the reality is typically that violence has come from the counter protesters, the people who come to antagonize, to provoke, or to commit the violence themselves, which has happened. It happened at UCLA, where the counter protesters came out and actually beat the crap out of a lot of protesters. And guess what? Where were the police? Nowhere to be found. And that's not unique. Actually, even at the ASU protest, we had some very few, but some counter protesters who were doing things that would have warranted arrest, who did not get arrested. So there was 0 basis for it. And I just wanted to say something in response to your earlier comments. So first of all, if somebody wanted to find me, I am the managing partner for Consumer Attorneys. Literally, I wore it as opposed to a suit, but it's consumerattorneys.com. And I also wanted to point out that my partner is actually a Jewish American. So, this is not a Muslim issue as far as what I'm doing for the students in this country. And because this has nothing to do with their religion, it has to do with their First Amendment right to protest. And that's lost on so many people. It's crazy. And if you indulge me, in Arizona, we have a very conservative legislature that has pushed to pass bills that would allow protest anywhere on the college campuses in Arizona, because they want to see groups like Turning Point USA and these more alt-right groups to be permitted to protest without having to worry about arrest because of violations of student code of conduct. But as soon as those protesters were pro-Palestinian or we'll call it anti-war, they're nowhere to be found. No one's standing up for these kids. And so they're going to be at a crossroads. They have to decide, do they actually care about constitutional rights, or do they only care about the rights of those who say what they want to hear?
Yeah, I tell you what, I feel bad for Jewish Americans who have been politicized and propagandized by this pro-Netanyahu spin that the protests are anti-Semitic. They're not anti-Semitic. And I know that if one of your students was involved in anti-Semitism or attacked someone who was Jewish because they were Jewish, that you probably would be defending the Jewish kid against that, because it's about defending what's right, not, shoring up the, what's wrong. So it pains me that this country seems focused on that. And I meet a lot of Jewish people who say, "Oh, it's anti-Semitic." I said, "Wait a minute." I said, "Are you really looking at what's going on? You mean to tell me that when a government kills 34,000 people, where 80% of them are civilians, that doesn't mean anything, but these allegations of anti-Semitism, and I'm sure there are some students that are, anti-Semitic, and they should be punished, but prove it. Don't just,
Yeah.
slander people and defame a whole group of people. It's almost like one person does something and all the Arabs and Muslims, are suddenly that, and it really is wrong. How do you, and I'm glad you pointed out your law firm. And again, that's Consumers Attorneys, right? With an S.com. Consumer Attorneys, no S. Consumerattorneys.com. And you said your partner is Jewish American and
Yep.
you're Muslim American. I think that's the perfect combination to stand up for justice for both sides, for Jews, for Muslims, for Christian Arabs, and everybody. So I admire that. Was it hard for you? I mean, at some point did you sit and say, "Oh my gosh, this has been so demonized by the media and politicians"? There are politicians that are just worse than Netanyahu in America. And you risk being attacked and called, "Oh, that's CARE. They're trying to bring Sharia law." Sharia means law.
I know.
Allah just means God. That's what the word means. My mother, Christian, from the Church of the Nativity, would say Allah because that's the Arabic word for God.
Language.
It's not like a different, yeah. But people, I just am always ashamed of the ignorance in this country about truth and facts. But were you worried about that? Were you concerned, like, getting into this, that, oh my gosh, people are going to paint you to be some horrible person?
No.
Good.
No, I had no fear of that. It didn't even cross my mind. This is not a religious, the lawsuit I filed is not a religious lawsuit. It is a First Amendment lawsuit. It is a protection of our constitutional rights. My advocacy on CARE, when I joined the board for the CARE chapter, and people don't understand the chapters are all autonomous.
Right.
This has nothing to do with religion. It is about protecting the civil rights of not only Muslim Americans, although predominantly that is what we're focused on, but any people who are being, who are having their rights violated. And in our chapter specifically, we have non-Muslim employees, right? I mean, it's not a Muslim advocacy organization in the traditional sense, although we focus on the targeting and the Islamophobia. We do focus on that. We aren't limited to that in any respect. But when I brought this lawsuit, it was specifically to deal with the First Amendment rights that had been violated by of these students.
And as you pointed out, only 5 of the 27 were actually Arab. Maybe some Muslim. I don't know if there are any Christians. Doesn't matter. But the rest of them were non-Arab. They're just students, and you're defending everybody. And maybe there could have been a Jewish student among them that was protesting. CARE, I appreciate what CARE does, because it is so hard in this country to do the right thing. They make it so difficult that when you stand up and say the right thing, they want to defame you. They want to twist your words. They want to call you names. They want to deflect away from the real issues and say, "Oh, you're an anti-Semite," or "You hate Jews." No, this isn't about Jews. This is about a government. This is about policies that are unfair, not even just to Arabs, policies that are unfair to students. What happened in 1968, the brutality of that convention, I was young before I actually got into the military. After the government looked at what happened, and I think that's going to happen in this case. A year from now, there's going to be a national commission looking at what was the response of police and universities. Back in 1969, I think it was a year later, a state commission looked at what the police did and they called it a police riot. You could see it was a police riot in 1968, but at the time they were cheering the beating of these students. It was just horrible. I just, what you had meant, I don't know if we could talk about that other case. One of the things that brought my attention to Arizona was this video that was circulating on social media of a professor there, Jonathan Udelman, I think was his name. He's a debate professor. And he was just so obnoxious to this woman. She was 20 years old. She was Muslim. She was wearing a hijab and she was trying to get away from him. But he was like puffing his chest up and he's yelling at her, saying horrible things to her. And there's a man next to him who I've heard that he may be an Israeli soldier or working with the Israeli military who's joining in and attacking her. You could hear this and you're thinking, why isn't anybody doing anything about that? What do we know what happened with the status? I've heard some reports on it. Is that something you could talk about?
I could talk briefly about it. I have been in contact with the young woman who was being attacked. I've trying to explain to people that assault doesn't require a physical touching. Although there was a physical touching here, he was puffing his chest. He bumped her at least once. And for those of you on the radio, I imitated the bumping that he did, but he flailed his arms at her. He called her a
terrible word for a woman.
Yeah, a terrible word. He forced her into, she bumped into a palm tree as she was trying to get away from him. So he caused the physical touching in that regard as well. So technically speaking, under the letter of the law, he did assault her.
Even verbal assault is just as bad as, even just a modest physical. And I don't know if you can even say that any kind of physical assault is modest, just anything. I mean, the threat that was in his voice, she didn't say anything. And from what I understand, I don't think she was even a protester. She was just walking on campus, right?
That's right. She was not one of the protesters. She was literally just walking down the street, actually riding her bike, and then had to get off the bike because of the protests that were taking place, but then was trying to get away from him because he started accosting her. And that's the thing about Muslim women who wear the hijab. Obviously, they're very easily identifiable as Muslim. They so I will say that what he did on that video is worse than what any single person who was arrested on April 26th at ASU, worse than anything any of them did.
Right.
So I don't know what the university would have done had those videos not gone viral on social media, and had there not been such clear, I think, disgusting footage of his demeanor and his conduct. But I will give them credit. He was fired yesterday from the university. He's trespassed.
It was last night.
That's right. So he was also trespassed from the campus, which means he's not permitted on campus ever again. And the man that was with him is an IDF soldier. He actually makes it a habit to go to these colleges across the country and antagonize. That's what he does. He's a troublemaker.
You can tell from his words on the video. And if people want to see this YouTube video, you can go to Hanania.com in the notes section, where I did an interview with David and posted that. And then also in another post, I posted the video. If you want to watch this, it's a little disgusting because the intensity of the hatred that comes across in the language. Now, I don't think they would have done that to that professor had it not been for you representing those students, because had those students not been defended by somebody, nobody would have focused on that video, this horrific video of this professor. He's actually a professor,
Ethics.
Ethics professor, debate professor, picking on a woman who really, it's like, she's like 20. What the heck? It's like terrible. It just makes you feel sick when you see what's taking place. But I don't think they would have taken action against him had it not been for your lawsuit, because you raised the issue to the point that I think, in my opinion, you told the university what you're doing is wrong. There's a double standard here on how you're addressing this issue. Did they get the message, or did they feel, oh, we better cover ourselves and respond to this professor? How do you view what the university did overall?
So,
And is
so
doing?
I can tell you that the administrative action taken against these students is ongoing. They're still suspended, still trespassed from campus. Some of them can't, in fact, none of them can go back on campus, and some of them can't go to their on-campus jobs. So they're facing termination here soon.
It's terrible.
Two of them were unable to attend their graduation on May 6th. And this is so ironic, Ray. Michael Crow, who did fire this professor, Jonathan Udelman, but during the commencement speech, and Michael Crow is the president of Arizona State University,
right.
He gave a commencement speech, and I posted it on my social media page as well. And ASU posted it on social media. I just took a clip of it, and he says to the students, you have one last assignment before you graduate, and that is to fight for your 4 freedoms. 2 of those freedoms that he encourages them to fight for are freedom of speech and freedom of religion. And the irony can't be lost, I think, on anyone who would hear that and who knows that just a week prior, he suspended 27 students for their use of the First Amendment, for following and protesting against the university's complicity. Let's be clear, our universities are complicit in the ongoing conflict, the genocide that's happening to the Palestinian people, but not just the genocide that's happening to the Palestinian people. Our universities are invested in weapons manufacturers who profit from bloodshed. I mean, think about this. Raytheon, Northrop Grumman, these companies that make bombs and missiles and fighter jets and tanks, if there weren't wars, they'd have no one to supply their weapons to. So when you invest your endowments, and these universities have multi-billion-dollar endowments, when you invest those endowments in companies that profit from war, essentially the only way for you to get a return on your investment is to have more war, to keep selling more missiles and bombs. And so it should not be something that our universities are invested in, because it's counter to what we're supposed to be trying to teach our citizens, right? These kids to have a future without war.
And I blame the media in a way, because that's a great point that I don't think comes across when they say the protesters want the university to divest from Israel. They actually want the university to divest from countries that are investing money in the military-industrial complex. These companies that produce weapons of mass destruction that are then used to kill civilians. That's a good cause. Now, and I know, listen, the Jewish community, or I should say the pro-Israel community, is very on top of communications. They know how to write the perfect press release to make ugly look beautiful and untruthfully beautiful. And the Arab and Muslim community, sometimes we don't know how to put a press release together that gets our facts, because we believe the right way, that truth on its face should be more than enough to convince people to do the right thing. You don't have to spin truth. You just let people see the truth, and eventually they'll agree. But this is a propaganda war as much as it is a military war. I don't want to leave the President Crow. We're gonna take a break, but I don't want to leave the topic of the president of the university, President Crow, without asking: is there some? Has he crossed the line? I mean, in the way that these are students that they didn't engage in racism, they didn't engage in anti-Semitism, they protested. They did exactly what he told them to do after he had them arrested and suspended. What are there any consequences for him, do you think?
I mean, truthfully, probably not.
Is there a movement to call for him to step down? There should be some pressure on him to wake up and say, why are you prosecuting students who did nothing except what you told them to do 4 or 5 days later, after maybe like 8 days later after the fact?
Right.
It just seems wrong.
There's definitely a push to call for his resignation, but realistically, that's not likely to happen.
Listen,
I
I'm going
can
to tell you what, when the media picks up on stuff, they don't like it when the media reports about this stuff. And if there are people calling for that, you have them call me because I will write a story about it. Now, I'm just a small little drop in this media ocean that we have, but drops of water end up creating pools, and pools of water creates, lakes, and these things have a way of growing. It's like lighting a fuse. So if there is something going on with that, I think it should be looked at. It's sad that the consequences aren't there at that level for him, because if this were reversed, it would be completely different. It would be all about him. If the students were pro-Israel and they were protesting and they got shut out, I would say that you wouldn't have any problem getting people to support you if you were representing them. And
Well,
I bet that you have to fight to get your justice out there so people see it.
well, you saw what happened to the university presidents at Harvard, and
Yes.
I mean, they didn't take action against the protesters because they respected their First Amendment rights,
Right. And they're being
and they got
vilified.
fired.
Right. And they're vilified as being anti-Semitic because they did nothing.
Yeah.
This guy is, not. I probably write an opinion piece about comparing those two. But if there's anybody out there that's pushing for it, please send them my way, because I want to get their voices heard. David Chami is my guest. We're going to take a quick break. He's an attorney from originally from Detroit. His family's from Detroit, Hamtramck and Dearborn Heights. I think he said he lived there for a while. Married. He's now working, helping students at Arizona State University. He got his law degree there in 2009. He worked at the student legal clinic, and that's something we could talk about when we come back from the break. The amount of transgressions, the types of transgressions that didn't result in anything that would take place. And the only reason they're resulting in something now is because of this overtone of it has to do with Israel and the Palestinians. That's why people are taking actions. His website is consumerattorneys.com. I'm Ray Hanania. We're going to take a quick break, our final break, and we'll be right back to continue this discussion with attorney David Chami. We'll be right back right after these messages.
With more than 30,000 successful in vitro fertilizations, IVF Michigan is now ranked as one of America's best fertility clinics, according to Newsweek magazine. IVF Michigan fertility centers are the recognized leaders in high-quality fertility care. With locations in Bloomfield Hills and 9 other cities in Michigan and Ohio, IVF has experts in all aspects of the field. A founding member, American board-certified Dr. Nicholas Shama, is one of the leading reproductive endocrinologists in Michigan and Ohio. He has performed over 20,000 successful IVF cases, and it's helped thousands of couples fulfill their dreams of parenthood. When it's time to get personalized care from Dr. Nicholas Shama at one of America's best fertility clinics, call IVF Michigan Fertility Centers in Michigan and Ohio toll-free at 855-952-9600. 855-952-9600.
Are you going to start a restaurant or a grocery store soon? Do you need floor plans and designs? Call Najee Abood at 734-744-9796. Do you want to buy kitchen and restaurant equipment at discount prices? Call Najee Abood now, 734-744-9796. New Concept Products and Design, the trademark of kitchen equipment. 5% discount on all purchases of $75,000 or more. New Concept Products and Design, new location, 31185 Schoolcraft in Livonia. Learn more at www.newconceptproducts.com. Call Najee Abood, 734-744-9796.
At Top Rehab Physical Therapy Clinic in Dearborn, we provide effective physical therapy sessions in order to limit pain and discomfort. Top Rehab provides physical therapy care for any diagnosis prescribed by a physician, and we regularly see and treat conditions such as stroke, TMJ, fibromyalgia, sciatica, joint pain, and more. We use a variety of pain management methods, including modalities, soft tissue mobilization, and therapeutic exercise. If you're in need of physical rehabilitation or physical therapy, get the highest quality health care at Top Rehab. Most insurance is accepted, and we're open Monday, Wednesday, and Friday 8 to 6, Tuesday and Thursday 8 to 5, and Saturday 10 till 2. Call for an appointment today at 313-846-0555. That's 313-846-0555. Choose Top Rehab Physical Therapy Clinic on Michigan Avenue in Dearborn. Life's too short to be in pain.
And welcome back to Radio Baladi. I'm your host, Ray Hanania. My website is hanania.com for all my columns and posts and links to all the stuff that I do. I don't know. I was going to be a doctor like all my uncles and cousins. And one day I woke up in the middle of the Vietnam War, and I'm watching a TV debate between an Arab and an Israeli, and the Israeli looked American. He sounded American. He didn't just speak English. He spoke American baseball. And then the Arab spokesperson, again, he had the just cause. He just couldn't speak. He didn't look good. He didn't present himself. And you could tell he was losing the debate, even though he had the just argument. And I realized that, the problem is we don't understand presentation, communications, how to make our arguments. Perception is reality in this country. It's not what you say, but how you say it. And I ended up getting into journalism, and sometimes I regret it because even the Arab community doesn't appreciate journalists. I don't think journalists are held in high esteem. Writers are not held in high esteem unless you do poetry or music, or you're singing at a hafla. So it's a tough struggle, but I think that the reason I bring this all up is, Layla Al-Husseini has invested her life to put this radio show live on the air in Detroit. It's the only radio show that's every morning, Monday through Friday, and all we talk about is what's happening in the Arab community, regardless of the Palestinian, Jordanian, Yemeni, Syrian, Iraqi, Egyptian, you name it all. And she needs support. And if you're out there, you should be supporting her. You should be helping this radio station to get the word out on stories like this. A guy, David Chami, he's an attorney with a great organization, CARE, in Arizona. It's in Tempe, Arizona State University, which is a little city, I think, that's southeast of Phoenix, if I'm correct, right? And
that is right. It's Tempe.
Tempe. You ask people where that is, they're not going to know, but he's making waves, standing up for what's right. Defending 22 students, only 5 of them are Arab, who are trying to protest and do the right thing, and they haven't done anything terrible, but they're being persecuted by the university and the university president. It's admirable what you do, because you risk being demonized for what you're doing. Have you gotten any backlash from people because you're doing this at all, or?
On social media, but those are what we call those keyboard warriors,
Yeah.
attacking. But for the most part, I haven't faced any backlash in the legal community. And again, it's not about religion. It's not
right.
If you can make it about the Constitution, it's a lot easier. And I think this is to your point, right? If you can speak their language,
right.
It's a lot easier to I think deflect any of the nonsense that people throw at you.
Can you salvage these students their academic careers at this point? I mean, you pointed out they're suspended. Some of them or all of them can't even go on campus. They can't go to their campus jobs. They missed, I assume, graduation. I mean, what can be done? What's their status, and what can we do to help them?
Well, look, so in addition to representing them in their lawsuits, I've also been acting as their advocate, not all of them, but most of them, as their advocate directly with the university through the administrative process. It's ongoing. The expectation is there will be a resolution. Before the break, you mentioned my advocacy during law school through the Arizona State University Student Legal Clinic.
That's right.
And in that role, I would oftentimes deal with students who had been arrested for partying, maybe destroying property because they had been drinking at a party, maybe had gotten into a fight with a girlfriend and charged with maybe some sort of domestic battery. And in Arizona, if you punch a wall, it can be domestic violence. So there's a lot of, a lot of things that kids would get in trouble for during school. And the vast majority of these crimes that they had violated, which also are violations of the student code of conduct, resulted in, at worst, being kicked out of a dorm. I can't recall a single time where I represented a student or had a student come in who was facing, who had been suspended from classes, who had been prevented from even communicating. The kids I'm representing can't even communicate with their professors about their coursework or the lack of coursework that they didn't complete. They're unable to request from those professors to give them temporarily an incomplete. And from what the information I've been receiving is these professors have been encouraged to give these kids a 0 on their final exams, and then potentially, which would result in zeros or failing grades in the classes. Now, during our hearing in court, the university did say that if the suspensions are lifted, these students would be permitted, and they assured us that they would be allowed to complete whatever missed assignments they had, the final exams, and they would be able to get their degrees, even though they missed commencements, if they had qualified for graduation. At this point, I can't tell you what they'll actually do. I would be shocked if they continued to toe the line and to say these kids would be, permanently suspended or not be allowed to complete their classes, just because I'm still in an active lawsuit now.
Right.
And in that lawsuit, I suspect that I'm going to find plenty of examples where they did not take the same type of action for conduct that was far worse than what these kids did. In fact, when people say what they did wasn't that bad, I go the other way, Ray. What these kids did was commendable. It was honorable. To be punished for what they did to me it's unexplainable. It's unfathomable. I don't understand how you can punish these kids and even take the action that they've taken because they didn't get off the lawn at 11 o'clock.
Yeah, and I think that two really important points. One, just for our listeners, David Chami, after he got his law degree, I want to emphasize he worked with the Arizona State University Student Legal Center to help students and address their issues. And he pointed out in those cases, the grievances were far more terrible than the grievances and complaints against the students he's representing now who were protesting the genocide in Gaza. It doesn't even come close, and it fit right in with what the president of the university was saying: go out and fight and free speech, say what you need to do. And that's exactly what they were doing. They didn't do anything compared to all the stuff that was brought to you as at the legal student aid center at the university. And those students weren't kicked out. They weren't, they were just treated like, oh, but you're 27, you're 22 students. 5 of them are Arab, but it doesn't matter to the public. All 22 might as well be Arab. All 22 might as well be Muslim. They don't care what they are. They hate them because of what they symbolize, and they want to punish them. It's almost like this is a form of Islamophobia just because someone looks at me. I've been attacked many times by people saying, oh, you're a Muslim, and they'd say terrible things about me. And the fact that I'm Christian doesn't really matter. I'm still the victim of Islamophobia. And I think all 22 of those students are victims of racism and Islamophobia by the university. It's just horrible. But the other thing is that, they're lucky that CARE is there to provide a legal defense through you and others to represent them. Unfortunately, I don't hear about this in a lot of other places. Nobody's putting an effort into it. So when you get back to CARE, you got to tell them and they do a great job. CARE's the last organization that needs to be told. put out a press release. But their press releases make a difference. And it's impossible to cover all the things that CARE does, but it gets out. It has a cumulative effect of telling people that something's wrong here, and there's a voice in defense of people that are unjustly treated. And I think it's admirable that you are representing them. We only have a few minutes left. I don't know if there's anything you want to talk about. I'm certainly interested if you do anything with the young girl. We'd love to know what goes on with that. Maybe CARE will be doing something with that. Maybe you will. And I'm certainly interested in any people that feel in a much stronger, or at least reflecting our feelings that we've talked about the role of the president. I think that he needs to be held accountable. That's my opinion. He should not be allowed to get away with what he's done because there is a double standard. Even if they did punish this guy Yodelman, this professor, after the fact, they finally did something. That doesn't negate the hypocrisy and the double standard that's taking place with these 22 students. And it still is a double standard.
So I'll tell you that all of these students received their disciplinary letters within 24 hours, in some cases within 4 hours of their arrest, which suggests to me that they were planning the suspensions. It was decided you get arrested, you're getting suspended. And then they sent the police out there to arrest them, right? So it suggests to me a pre-plan to not only arrest these kids, but to suspend them. And the idea is to chill future speech, right? If you know that the university is going to crack down and suspend you and take disproportionate action, then you're more likely to stay home, and that's what they want. And despite having a video, I'm talking clear video evidence of an assault, of harassment, of intimidation by a professor, it took the university a couple viral videos and a lot of noise before they fired him. It should have been instantaneous.
That finally made it to CNN and these other TV shows. What you were doing got up there locally, I'm sure, in Arizona, but nobody and they should have made your case an even bigger case than this one case involving this professor. Although in both cases, people should know what's going on. David, listen, thank you so much. Again, my guest, David Chami. He took the time out this morning. He's way on the West Coast, and it's early in the morning over there. And I know what it's like, although it's not as bad for me here in Chicago, broadcasting in Detroit. But I know everybody in Detroit and online, on Facebook, and I'm going to write something up about this afterwards to get the word out so people see it. I know that everybody appreciates what you do and what CARE does. And, please stay in touch with me with anything else that you do, because it's so important that we get the word out on that. David Chami, the attorney, his website is Consumer Attorneys, EYS, right?
That's right.
And some people go IES, but EYS, consumerattorneys.com. Go there to get more information on attorney David Chami and his law firm and what he's doing to help those 22 students who were doing what they were told to do by the president of the university: stand up for freedom and fight for it. Of course, the president waited until after they were dismissed and suspended before he got up and he said that. So, David, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Pleasure talking to you.
Take care.
And everybody, thank you for listening to Radio Baladi. I'm Ray Hanania. This will be posted on YouTube, and it'll be on my website at hanania.com. Go there, support me, support Layla, support WNZK AM 690. We'll talk to you next month. I just do the second Friday of every month until we revive our Arab News Radio show, which will start sometime in August weekly. I'm Ray Hanania. Have a great day. Hanania.com. Bye, everybody. Bye-bye.
WNZK has available a few good hours of air.